This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium. Episode 78.
The finale.
Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson. Show's over, folks.
All right, here we are at the end.
It was fun, but
it was all a dream.
Yeah,
I have to go back to the island now.
it would have been I would be happy to know that it was because then that would have mean that that's what I was doing while I was sleeping, which means while I was sleeping I was not getting good sleep. You know, if the tournament was all a dream, then it was not a peaceful night's rest. Okay. It was rolling around in the covers. I'm not comfortable. Oh, I'm too hot. No, I'm too cold.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to lay on the floor now for some reason. Oh, it's cold. It's too cold on the floor.
Haven't we complained about this tournament enough?
Let's complain.
When does it stop?
No, let's start this right and say, it was so long. I'm so bored. I didn't want to do it anymore. Oh, poo-poo baby.
I want to get something out of the way here real quick too, because this was plaguing the Twitch chat of the finals, which is what we're going to talk about today. But something I kept noticing in the Twitch chat is people kept referring to me as though I was doing commentary in the Twitch chat, which I definitely was not.
Right.
So I think even to this day, after 77 episodes, this is our 78th episode. Well, technically this is like our 80-somethingth episode.
Right, because of your stupid numbering system.
I'm Matt Martins. This is what my voice sounds like.
Yeah.
Hunter.
Hi, I'm Hunter. This is what my voice sounds like, okay?
And we're joined today. Who are we with? Hey, Alex, say hey.
Hey, I'm Alec. Also, Root.
Yeah. His voice isn't as the same as Hunter and mine. Although I don't think our voices are that similar, but apparently people say we sound pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I could see for them. Because, I mean, it's where we both, we're both mud children from, the swamplands of Arkansas, we say. Woo pig.
We have that woo pig way about us.
Right. We're both, we're pigmen. We're half pig.
Where are you from, Alec? Where are you from? Not like, I know you're in Minnesota, but where are you from?
Well, I'm in Wisconsin, but
Wisconsin,
good try.
Not Minnesota. Whatever. It's the same. It's all the same, right?
Oh boy. I feel bad
We're in
for
Madison. That's what I was thinking of.
I grew up, my most formative years I spent in New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
The land of
That's not so bad.
enchantment.
I was afraid of you because I know you lived in Florida for a while, and I was afraid of you saying you were from Florida. And so we're like, oh, he's got it a lot worse. That's not great.
Nope. Thankfully, I only spent 6 years there.
Oh. That's not so bad.
Hey, do you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, this is a really wandery start for
thing?
like we've.
This is a wandery start.
Yeah, I think we're just exhausted. I think because of how business forward this podcast has had to be for so long.
Right.
That sometimes it feels good to just start a podcast like it's a cool thing and you're just talking, But no, we're here today to talk about the finals, how they went. I want to put this up at the beginning. You can watch them on YouTube, correct? Not all of it at this point, or all of it?
It'll be there. I mean, by the time people are listening to this episode, it'll all be up there. Yeah.
Cool.
There's 3 parts.
Yeah.
3 or 4. Ideally 3 parts. We'll see how
There might be a fourth
estimating
part.
goes.
There might be a fourth part that's just like the last 30 minutes. But yeah, so it's up there. You can watch it. Please watch it. Like we're going to talk about the game in a very kind of general way at the beginning of this, and then there will be a point where we're going to say that it's spoiler time.
You should know that it is spoiler free for a while. We're going to talk about the game, but you don't have to have watched it if you are still wanting to watch it. Definitely, you can listen for the first bit, but we will let you know when the spoilers kick in. We will give you fair warning.
I do want to mention about the video real quick. It's a different video than any of the videos we've done up to now.
Yeah.
We've already had a couple comments about the commentary on that video, and it's very different. We treated that video as a game and a video that people might sometime in the future watch having zero experience with Twilight Imperium. Yeah. So I went into that commentary explaining some very basic things that like regular viewers of the show already know.
Right. Yeah, and the reason we did that too is because all the other videos we've been putting out for all these games, those are more like a catalog of the tournament. Those are historical documents that were important to preserve. The final game is something that, in my mind, I mean, there were 108 players in this tournament. These are the 6 best players, in my mind, in the world. I'm not going to qualify that. Like, they're the 6 best players in the world. And so if you watch this final game, you're watching the best game of Twilight Imperium that has ever been played. It's been, I mean that.
I think that holds
watching
up.
People who are at the top of their game. This is what TI looks like when it is at the highest level.
No, that's what, and we should say that at the beginning, just so you guys know. It was the best game. Like, it was the best.
It actually was, which is why we're so excited to do this episode today, too, is because not only was it just, like, a lot of stakes riding on it, but it's like, it actually was a very, very, very good game.
Can we just go ahead and start with the, like, scripting thing? Like, it felt like this game went so good, it felt like we were, like, that we had scripted the game. Like, it felt like we had decided all the victory points that were going to come out, all the agendas.
Yes,
and here's the thing:
we have joked about.
Right,
we have joked. Hunter and I have said someday we want to do a stream where we don't tell the players we're rigging the deck against them, but we want that is a goal of ours. And this game felt like as good of a game as we would have gotten had we put all the objectives in as like the perfect formula of them and agendas coming out at like the exact right time to have the most dramatic impact.
Right.
I mean, it was a perfect game. Of TI.
It's so like the game knew what we were doing.
Right. the game knew the stakes.
Yeah, the game was like, all right, I gotta be serious right now. Okay, this is not a screwing around affair.
There's 100 people watching me right now.
There's 100 people watching me. I'm Twilight Imperium, and I'm gonna do this.
So we knew this game was gonna have kind of like a longer lasting appeal. Someone can show someone else this game, and say this is what TI can look like. And I mean, I feel sorry for anyone who doesn't know anything about TI and goes in to watch this 13-hour-long video.
but you should be able to watch the video and understand what's going on, even if you've never played a game before.
Exactly. Root put a lot of work into covering a lot of the basics of like what is happening, especially in those early rounds. You kind of you come up to speed with it, and then by round 4 or 5, it's like, okay, now we're in kind of a groove here. But let's dial things back a little bit. Let's talk about the map. The map. We didn't do a preview episode of the map like we've done with all the other maps for this tournament.
And why was that, Matt? What was the decision there?
I really wanted to. I got called out on this, but I love the way this conversation went, which is like I wanted to challenge the players, right?
Right.
They've had many games now of being able to look at this map and prep it, and that was part of those rounds design, right? We wanted the players to invest time beforehand of researching about the map and kind of being like, what do I really, really want to do? I want to take this seriously, like you would in any other like esport. You know, in StarCraft, players are aware of the maps and what strategies they need to employ on that specific map. So this go around, I was like, what if we shake it up and they don't get to know anything about the map until the moment they start playing, which, as it turns out, is the way the board game Twilight Imperium is normally played.
Right.
You know how normally you just build the map and then that's the map you have. So the players didn't build the map. We did have a preset map. We just didn't let them see it. And I'll be honest, I've been working on. We've been working on this map since November.
Yeah, but it's been a lot. Like, I think you can say you. Like, this map. I mean, maybe I'll just speak for myself. I'll just say that my part in this map was mostly, yeah, that looks good. Like that's mostly,
like an executive, right?
I mean, that was a lot of my input too. I think I had 1 or 2 notes during the development of the map, but it wasn't much.
Right.
But there were 6 different versions of this map over the course of the few months that I've been messing with it. And let's talk about the themes of this map. The map is posted up on the Twilight Imperium subreddit if you want to take a look at it. But and we don't need to do as big of a breakdown because it's not as important with here. There's only one game being played on it. But there's like 2 major ideas at play with this map. First and foremost, All of the equidistant systems are single planet systems. Right. The goal there being no sharing. Nobody gets to split. Yeah, you cannot split those equidistants. Someone's going to get there first, and someone's going to have that planet. Now, because they're equidistants, it's not like they're like the most powerful planets, but still. Then within pie slices, which as we've described before, pie slices are the 3 planets adjacent to you, and then the one path that is directly, the one system that is directly on your path to Mechatol Rex.
The 3 tiles that are adjacent.
The 3 tiles,
yes.
Right. So within those 4 tiles, that is your home slice, and then including your home system. Mm-hmm. So with every single slice, you have 1 double planet system to your right. You have 1 red-backed system, so whether that's an anomaly or an empty tile or whatever, or a wormhole, you have something to your left. And then in front of you, there were 2 types of slices. And it was like every other slice was one of these 2 styles. One was a system adjacent to home, so you can have kind of a nice little turtle situation, right? You've got 2 planet systems adjacent to home, mm-hmm. but then the planet or the system tile next to Mechatol Rex on your path was some sort of mildly annoying anomaly. In 2 of the system, or 2 of their cases, it was asteroid fields, and in the other it was the gravity rift. So like you can go straight to Mechatol if you want to, but you either need antimass or you gotta risk it through the rift. The other type of slice was one where the tile right in front of your home system was empty, just complete empty space, and then you had a decent 2 planet system adjacent to Mechatol Rex. So what that means is 2 things. One, you only have 2 planets adjacent to your home. So you feel a little starved right at first, but then you have a pretty good forward base. Mm-hmm. And the main thing being, this is supposed to encourage people to be aggressive towards Mechatol Rex. It gives somewhere to set up. I mean, honestly, the main thing is like any of those slices should, in theory, be good for someone like Xcha. Xcha gets out there, sets up a base in front of Mechatol Rex, and has this really scary force surrounding Mechatol. Now, that can change depending on how you feel about playing Xcha, but that's the idea, is setting up some sort of aggressive position on Mechatol in half the slices, and some sort of defensive position that's a little bit annoying to get to Mechatol in all the other slices. Mm-hmm. And then making them play it out from there. And the big thing within all that then is this map was designed with the draft sort of in mind. You're supposed to try to get factions that specifically fit into that slice's style. There wasn't really supposed to be an idea of like some slices are good, some slices are bad, so ideally a good faction ends up in a bad slice. It's more like certain factions just would not be able to do well in this type of slice because it doesn't have the positioning that this kind of faction needs.
Right. Yeah, I think about anti-mass deflectors for both the slices that had asteroid fields in between them and Mechatol Rex. Right. If you're having to pick up anti-mass, the likelihood that you don't start with it, that means you don't have gravity drive unless you're like Ghost. That's the only example. Right. In which case you're probably not beating anybody to the custodians, which is a problem. Right. Like
yes, yeah. So that's kind of all there is to really cover about the map. You can watch the game and see how it played out yourself, but the main goal being I wanted to lessen a little bit of the symmetry. So far, every map has had very, very even symmetry between all 6 slices, and this one was like, let's shake it up a little bit. There's like half symmetry because of the 2 varying styles of slices. But at the end of the day, too, the slice encourages kind of a form of aggression. I don't know. I wouldn't even say, I can't say what kind of map I really think it plays out as.
I think it's a mixture of the different philosophies of the prelims map and both the semis and knockout map. I felt like the prelims map was kind of about like, you're safe, like, you know, have your area and everything will be okay. And that's like all of the ones where you have the early expansion is you're just a little bit safer, naturally. And then the other slices are more of a risk it for the biscuit type. Right. Like, yeah, you're not as safe. Lead. Yeah, but you could possibly push it further in the mid to late game. Which I feel like the semis and knockout maps both kind of had a theme of like, it's like it's a riskier style of map, and you might get more out of risking that, basically.
Right. Well, should we talk about the draft of this actual game itself, the finals game?
Yes.
Well, first off, I mean, if you listen to last week's episode, you know, our 6 players were Janor, Mage, Magi, Schroeder, Vaunt, and the 9 of Spades. So let's talk about the draft. What were your guys' big important takeaways from the draft?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious thing is that not every player, but a lot of the player, and actually, I have a two-pronged point to make here. So 4 of the players got factions that if you had asked me what faction they would want probably most, I would have said probably that faction specifically.
Yeah.
Specifically, right. Down to the faction. Not like their second pick, like what I would consider their first pick. Yeah. And then the other 2 players didn't, but also the other 2 players didn't have a faction that I would have already said was their thing. 9 of Spades was basically like a jack of all trades. I didn't know what he was doing. Like he was the only win for the Yin Brotherhood in the tournament, and he was the only win for the Muat. So, like, dude there's no profile for this guy. Yes. I don't know what he does.
You couldn't ban him out if you wanted to.
Right. And then Vaunt, I'm not sure what Vaunt would have wanted, but I actually feel like maybe I'm just a little ignorant to what specific factions kind of fall into his meta, but his meta seemed a little more like, I don't know. I mean, you could probably do this with any. I'm not sure there is a specific faction that leans towards this. I don't know. How do you feel, Matt? I feel like you know Vaunt a little.
I think he does want powerful factions because he wants, at the end of the day, he's not looking to use leverage, but he wants to make sure he has it as a backup plan because he's leaning into diplomatic relations a lot, and if any of those ever fail, he needs another plan. He can't rely. I don't think of him as a Hakan player. Yeah, right? Because he's not trading all the time. He's just dealing with people. Mm-hmm. So factions that just at least have some sort of either military superiority or some sort of economic superiority that you don't have to work for, but you just get, those are the ones that I would see him getting. And he got something like that, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, go ahead, Root.
I want to say that the 4 o'clock slice with the Supernova got picked last, and I kind of feel like it's probably the best general slice on the map.
I think everyone has said a different best slice. And we should talk a little bit too. We did 2 test games on this map.
We did.
Hunter, you and Root played in one game, and I played in another. And in between those 2 games, we saw all 6 slices perform very well and end up in your game. The 3 non-Mechatol, or the 3 Mechatol focused slices were the ones that seemed like they were the hottest performers, and 8 o'clock ended up winning your game, which most people were saying 8 o'clock is the worst slice, and 8 o'clock won in your game. And then in my game, it was the exact opposite. All the defensive slices did very, very well. So I think this game, this map, just relies on you to play into the strengths of your slice. Every slice has a path to victory, but you can't just play any faction in any slice. You really have to think about what's going to be in that slice and do well with it.
I actually think that in the 4 o'clock slice, you could probably play most factions.
So.
And maybe I'm just biased because I love Torcan Tecuron as a system.
Right.
But I don't know.
It is a good system.
Yeah.
I agree with what Root is saying. I want to add a little addendum to it, though. But I think it's just that the Supernova neighboring your home system is a unique advantage that none of the other slices have anything like that. I mean, they can't have anything like that. And that is something, it doesn't matter what faction you're playing. If you're using that correctly, then it will work well for you. I actually feel like, because I played in the 4 o'clock slice whenever we did our test game. And I sat there because Arborek was sitting next to me. So I was like, this Supernova is basically going to eliminate Arborek as a threat to my slice. However, I feel like the mistake I made that Janor did not make he was in 4 o'clock was, I feel like you got to make friends with your other neighborhood, because you have this Supernova on one side basically making it really unlikely that neighbor is going to get leverage over you. And I did not make friends with my other neighbor.
Right. And you have a lot of reasons to expand to your right into that neighbor. you have lots of reasons to be over there, so you need to start those relations off right away.
Sure. I also just think though that like that isn't a bad slice to kind of just sit and like play sort of like how Janor played, which was very like, you know, like let's be economical, not to give any spoilers, but it just is, I think, of the slices, I think it plays into that style the best.
Yeah, for sure. So we're still avoiding spoilers. We're going to get into spoilers here in a bit, but the last thing I think we want to talk about is, can we talk about how we just absolutely nailed it with those player profiles, and like every read we had on each of these players, they did. I mean, it's like they were our puppets, and we just told them what to do, and they did exactly what we instructed.
As if there was a script. Oh,
As if there was a script. Further evidence of the script.
Right. Yeah. Each player very much played that. I mean, like this makes it sound like we're wizards or something. Like,
no.
They told us how they played. Yeah, they told us how they played, and they didn't lie. You know, they didn't make it sound like they played one way, but instead played the other. But it was very fun. I think the fact that we put out those profiles before to think about each of their different styles and then see those styles clashing up against each other was very
and what added to that was the fact that, I mean, all of those players got to listen to that episode too. So they went into this with the same kind of preconceived notions about their opponents. And so what you saw at the very beginning of this game is a couple of these players actively trying to work against it, or even more so, we saw it on the Discord for a few days. Like the moment the episode dropped, all those players knew that the episode was going to be this info, so a lot of them were listening to it like the moment it dropped. And so this, I want to categorize it as this game started on Tuesday. They started playing. We have on the Discord, we had a secret chat room. It was originally being used for us to just do scheduling things, but it ended up being just this little place for the finalists to all talk together and just kind of hash things out. And for a few days, it was them like, the meta had already started, and they were trying to work out like, oh, I know it sounded like I'm this kind of person, but it's not. That's not completely true,
right?
And a lot of that.
There's a lot of that.
But they were the people that you know what I mean? Like even if they tried to make it sound that way, they were very much the people that we described.
Exactly.
And I actually feel like we like it. Some of the stuff that we said in the episode was almost like, it's like we were seeing the future as far as like some situations that did arise. I have some specific examples for when we get into spoilers, but I feel like there are some situations that we talked about that totally came up as just a natural result of these players playing together. I feel like the fact that was out there influenced some of the events that happened in the game as far as how the players treated each other. I think some players had like a plan, like, I'm going to treat this player like this because I know they're like this.
Right, exactly.
And there was some success of players like playing based on that, which was crazy. I didn't even imagine that that's how it would actually go down. It seems kind of obvious now, but it was not obvious to us before.
Right. Okay, well, should we? Is this the moment? Is this where we are? Should we announce spoiler time?
Right before we do spoilers, let's go ahead and finish off listing what every player played as faction-wise, what the faction makeup was, and maybe like...
Is that a spoiler, though? I feel like that's a spoiler.
That's at the very beginning of the game. That's hardly a spoiler.
Sure. Well, okay. Well, we're in soft spoilers now.
Well, so the reason I want to not include this in spoilers is I think if you hear the factions that got picked, it will excite you about watching this game.
Sure.
And also even the logic that, you know, this player got this faction, I think is also very exciting.
Yes.
All right. So who do we want to start with?
I'll run down the we had Janor playing as the universities of Jolnar.
Right.
But he was playing them in what I'll call a Mechatol slice. I'm going to call them Mechatol slices and defensive slices, just so to keep the categorization. So Jolnar in a Mechatol slice, in an aggressive slice.
Right.
Maybe I should use that term instead, aggressive. Mm-hmm. Then we had Mage as the L1Z1X, also in an aggressive slice. Mm-hmm. We had Unaligned Magi as the Necrovirus in a aggressive slice.
Nope.
And then we had Vaunt
Hold on.
as the... Oh, what?
Unaligned Magi was not in an aggressive slice.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. I got that backwards. Magi was in a defensive slice as Necro. Defensive slice as Necro. Vaunt was the Barony of Letnev in a defensive slice. The Nine of Spades was the Nalu Collective in a defensive slice, and Schroeder was the Emirates of Hakan in an aggressive slice.
Yeah.
So I think some of those are brilliant makeups of like they're in a slice that to me is a little bit contrary to that. I don't know that Hakan needs to be in an aggressive slice, but at the same time, Hakan's aggressive slice was Bergler to 4. So that's just like lots of money right next to home.
Right.
Although in my mind, usually Hakan wants to get a influence rich slice, but there's really only one slice on this map that can be described as influence rich. And I think that got nabbed very quickly. So yeah, I think the biggest thing here is Janor as Jolnar. Like you said, that's like a perfect match. Exactly what he wants to do: play a strong faction that has the ability to power up others easily,
right?
And rise their tides. Schroeder as Hakan is. Boy, howdy, if that's not a Schroeder faction, I don't know what is.
Right. I mean, we were literally talking about how many deals he likes to make, and there's not a faction that gets to make more deals than that.
Yep. And that combination easily added about 3 hours to the game time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just from the jump. I was going to say, so Janor, Mage, Magi, and Vaunt were all playing factions that they had already won games within the tournament as.
Right.
Which was very exciting from the onset of just like, wow, like this. And then in the fact that Janor, Mage, and Magi were playing not only factions they'd already won within the tournament as, but also factions that like, well, this is like their favorite faction.
Right.
Janor's name is literally like Jolnar.
Yeah. Unaligned Magi, like his entire calculation of like what things are worth is based off of the necrovirus. Like it all surrounds the economy of the necrovirus, and that is like what he has worked on seemingly more than any other faction. So yeah, lots of really good pairings here. And Mage only ever played L1Z1X. All 3 of Mage's wins, I should say, were L1Z1X.
Right. He had to play Yin.
So then going into this game, so let's get into it. I think it's spoiler time.
Yeah, well, let's just get into spoilers.
So from here on out, if you're listening to this and you want to watch the game, I would hang out and not listen to the rest of this episode until you do that. Fair warning, it is a 13-hour long game. It's a grueling experience.
But it is exciting. It is a very exciting game.
I say grueling. I don't mean
people to watch this, Matt.
No, you're engaged the whole time, but don't try to watch it in one sitting.
Right. Also, like,
give yourself a couple days.
I want to throw this out. Don't be afraid to mix and match. You know what I mean? Like, you watch the first couple hours of it. You're like, all right, I get it. Let's hear the boys talk about the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Experience it how you want to. But I guess what the point I want to make is. You gotta see it in video. If there's a part of you that is willing to experience every moment of this game, you should do that. Now that being said,
I'll throw this out there too. You Hunter mentioned it is on YouTube. You could also go to our Twitch, and the Twitch stream is up, and the Twitch stream is different than the YouTube video.
Yeah.
The YouTube video is Alec and I doing commentary. Really, Alec doing commentary. I chime in every once in a while. Honestly, my head was just completely in the sand of moderating this game. And then the Twitch stream, if you go to our Twitch stream, we're not putting that on YouTube, but we're keeping it on Twitch. The Twitch stream is Hunter and EJ kind of doing color commentary over the whole game. Because the players talked so much, I don't know that you guys got that many words in outside of what they were doing.
There's not a whole lot to say about the Twitch stream, but I will say this. We originally planned on like talking a lot, but these players basically never stopped negotiating. Like the first round, I kept turning them off, and I'd be like, all right, because the next turn is probably not going to be that big of a deal. And then I'd see like their hands moving around, like their little cursors moving around, and I could tell by how they were moving, they were talking in. So I just kept having to turn them back on. And I mean, there is a large portion of that stream that was basically just like me and EJ not saying. I feel bad for EJ actually, because he was there and excited and ready to goof off, and I kind of expected that it was maybe going to be like that. I did spend a lot of time just hanging out in chat, which was probably the better way to do it, anyways.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so
but let's break this. Let's break this puppy down.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Right off the bat, Magi's reputation starts getting in the way, and people are just like completely unwilling to make deals with.
Well, okay, let's be more specific. It wasn't necessarily people, because I want to give credit where credit is due. It was Jaynor. Jaynor what came into the game with a very specific attitude about Magi. Now, Magi triggered it in round 1. Magi tried to basically bully Jolnar and make threats and kind of get things done that way. And Jaynor essentially immediately pivoted to actually, it's good to note that Magi had trade round 1, so he was happy about that. But Jaynor immediately pivoted because of this bullying to like, okay, well, me and Schroeder as Hakan and Jolnar can just cut you out of trade. I will spend the token. Hakan gets the 6 for free, and we can just we can just not deal, basically.
And they were surrounding him, so it like was double threatening for him. Of like, not only is Jolnar not trading with me and not buying into my bullying, but he's doing it specifically with the other person who can start to hurt me. So these two are going to start beefing each other up, and they'll crush me if I don't change my tune.
Right. And it was very smart play on Jaynor's side. I mean, like Schroeder obviously was just excited about getting in on the deal, but Jaynor very much initiated this, and like the way that he did it was very Jaynor is a very chill guy, as you'll learn if you listen to it. Like it's his level of chill is he's like the Buddha of Twilight Imperium. Like it's so ridiculous, his chill. No, what people were calling him, he's like the dude from the Big Lebowski of Twilight Imperium. But like he goes very nuclear on Magi like right away. In his very chill way, he very much like, oh, you're gonna try and bully me? Well, no. And we're not
totally
going to do
shut
that.
it down.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is Barony was picking 3rd in speaker order, and they were in. There's 2 slices on this map that are much better favorites for tech specialties, and one of them is even better than the other, and that's the slice Barony was in. So I think one of the earliest failings by these players was they allowed Barony to get Warfare.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to take Warfare on this map round 1, but you do if someone with 2 styles of carriers or whatever is in the slice Barony was in, because 3 tech objectives, or three tech specialties was one of the first objectives out, and Barony got Warfare and immediately was able to set himself up in a position to score that. And if we know anything about Vaunt likes to score those early difficult ones, diplomacy his way into getting early difficult objectives, and then kind of rest on his laurels and just win from there. So right out of the gate, I was immediately afraid of how much Vaunt was maybe going to run away with this, just because it's like, oh, he's getting an easy point that maybe no one else in this entire game will score.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I agree with that. I also want to note before we get too far away from the Magi, Jaynor, Schroeder dynamic, I do want to mention that Schroeder. So it's like Jaynor kind of initiates this let's kind of cut Magi off a little bit, and then Schroeder, because of his. It was I don't know, that first round was so great because it just felt like a lot of the players were just playing right into their styles, and we were immediately seeing the effects of all that being played off. So Jaynor takes a stand, right? He's like, let's do this way. It'll be better for everybody. And then Schroeder's like, yes, this will be better for everybody. And then invites Magi back into the trade as long as Magi is willing to like refresh 9 of Spades so that Hakan can do more trades. So Jaynor's like, let's rise all the ships, and Schroeder's like, yes, that's a great idea. Also, can I get a little something too extra on top of all of that? And could there be more trades, please? There's not enough trades.
Can we build more ships and raise those up also?
Right. Yes. But yeah, so I just wanted to call that out. Round 1 is so much fun for that dynamic, and even I know you guys you know how it goes, but it's such a good round 1. Most round 1s in this tournament, frankly, were either boring or upsetting. Like I'm just gonna be honest. Like a lot of them were not like super fun to watch.
This
it's
one
round
was
1.
Invigorating trading.
Yeah, like so. You know how it is. It's round 1 of Twilight Imperium. It's very rarely something to write home about. It's a lot of times people just trying to like get set up or
It's just about making the right decisions.
Right.
The last thing for us to talk about round 1 is the speaker token. L1 took politics, and from the very beginning of this tournament, I talked frequently about how I didn't think that the speaker token would get sold or should get sold very often, and that it does a lot in TTS games. And boy, was I wrong! By and large,
it got sold so many times.
However,
and in this game, it got sold almost every single round.
Yeah, not only that, but in round 1, it got sold for the most I've ever seen it get sold for, which is his neighbor Barony's. Sorry, did I say Barony? L1 Mage.
Took, you got it right.
Okay, took speaker, and his neighbor to the right was Barony Vaunt, and gave him speaker for his ceasefire and his war funding, his racial promissory note.
Right. Wow. That's a lot for speaker token.
Yeah.
A lot of times people give up speaker token and are just like, yeah, you can have it as long as I get my first pick. And that's literally it, which I think is crazy that people would ever give it away for effectively nothing. But this was like, Vaunt was ready to put up or shut up. He was like, I'm going to make deals with you. And if you make... I think... For me personally, I think this was Vaunt seeing the rest of the round play out with all these deals, and knowing that Vaunt is this economic diplomat. He kind of understands the value of things. I think he saw how much trading was going, and he's like, I need to prove to these people that I have a lot to offer so that I can get some good stuff in return.
And
I need to set myself up as someone who's worth trading with.
He also knew that he needed to pick early because he was taking an early lead with that public objective.
Exactly. Yes, that was hugely important.
If he picked after all these people who just got rich off of each other, he was going to be in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a really smart play by Vaunt to get in on that. Like you're saying, I think that biggest point being everyone saw him taking those 3 tech specialties. Everyone knew he was going to have this point that was going to keep him ahead of the game for a while. And so for him to I need to make sure my round 2 follows this up nicely is a big deal. So I better be prepared to pay a lot for it.
Yeah, so having said that, round 2 was I don't think turned out as Barony hoped it would.
No, certainly not.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Hakan was vying for Mechatol Rex as well, but Barony had clearly indicated that they were going to push for it, and they took leadership. So they and I think they made it pretty public that they were like, I'm going to use leadership because I want to take Mechatol Rex. But then of the moment of their first turn, they said, however, Hakan, I can be bought. I see you're trying to go for Mechatol Rex. How much would you pay me to not take the Custodian's token from you? And they talked about it for a while. And I remember, Root, you kind of you felt like the deal that ended up getting offered was actually a pretty good one.
I also agree with that.
The end of the story is Barony did not end up taking any deal. I sort of wonder if Barony was ever actually planning on taking a deal that wasn't something ridiculous. I think Barony did it to fish for some sort of crazy thing. Like, I want to support for the throne right now. And if he wasn't going to get that, I don't think he was going to take any other deal. But the deal that ended up getting offered was Hakan was going to give him 6 trade goods to take Mechatol Rex. And he didn't take it.
And I just think... And I guess I speak with a little bit of hindsight, but I think I kind of knew that this was going to happen before it did. But making the decision to not take the deal and go for Mechatol Rex overextended him even more than he already was. I think he needed to spend round 2 protecting himself, protecting what he had, and making nice with his neighbors. And he did kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah, this was kind of a best case scenario where it's like, technically you shouldn't want to go to Mechatol, and if you can get paid off for it, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
if you can make $6 extra and not do the thing you didn't want to do anyways, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
I've literally made this mistake. I've literally had this game where I expanded to both equidistance. We haven't mentioned that yet. That's what Vaunt chose to do with Warfare, was expand to both of the equidistant systems. He didn't even take the system to his right.
To his right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he left one of his home slice, which I've totally done this exact move, and then even gone for Mechatol. And you cannot extend yourself that much. Right. And he gets called out right away. I mean, he takes the Custodian, and Jaynor is just like, all right, I can threaten your home system.
I can get into your home system, right?
Like
which and it's Jaynor. He has done this before to a Barony. This is not the first time Jaynor has made this exact threat. So you got to know he's serious.
Yep.
Right.
Now, I think he learned from his last lesson. I think he wasn't so willing to do it last time he did it, and it kind of ruined his game. So I think the idea that he was actually going to go into this home system is a little far-fetched. But Barony ended up paying support for the throne, as well as opened up one of those equidistance and said, "Hey, it's all yours."
Yep.
To do it.
I gotta say, this round, as far as Barony was concerned, I was just feeling like he wasn't taking his neighbors seriously enough.
I kind
Both
of
them.
agree.
I distinctly felt that, because there just wasn't. I mean, besides the overextending, which is like kind of an obvious thing that I think a lot of players have experienced, there just wasn't enough. He wasn't focusing enough on getting. Like it's like the Magi thing. He wasn't focused enough on winning space risk first. There wasn't enough plastic on the board, and it seemed like it was a priority he was kicking down the line and acting like it was something I can expand to these things and then later get the plastic thing figured out. But I mean, like, not with players like this. Not with players that are this sharp and see their opportunities right away. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're ever counting on one of these players to miss something they could do on a turn, they're not going to miss it.
Right.
Basically.
So Barony doesn't end up going for Jolnar doesn't end up going for Barony's home system, but L1Z1X on his other flank does take Aranam Mir from him. So L1Z1X is right in front of his home system.
Right.
With his ceasefire.
Like the midpoint of this round. And he's holding his ceasefire because he gave him the ceasefire for speaker token. So like just all kinds of in his way. And now all of his fleets are like interrupted. They're like, he's got a fleet that's just sitting in the asteroid field at this point, I think. And he's just looks like a mess.
Because of the skilled retreat.
Hakan ended up making his own move on Mechatol Rex after the Custodian got taken with a couple Dreadnoughts, because he had, did he get Dreadnought 2 that round from
from
Jolnar, yeah. He researched it himself because he got Gravity Drive from Jolnar the last round. I don't remember, but either way, he had Dreadnought 2. No, Necro got Dreadnought 2 from the research agreement. That's how he got it that early. But anyway, he had Dreadnought 2.
Can we give a quick shout out to Janor for selling research agreement for multiple techs within one tech round? I don't know if this is a round that he does that. No, it's not. But it doesn't really matter where we bring this out. Or no, wait, no. I think this was the round.
Regardless, he sold research agreement as many times as he possibly
It's just
could.
like, okay, so he can do the primary of tech because he's Jolnar, and so he can research 2 tech. So he would sell research agreement, research his first tech, and then he would sell research agreement again with the same. It seems
to be clear,
obvious,
you can only do that to the active player for anyone listening.
Right.
You can only sell it back to the active player in that case.
Right. But still, it's so wild that he was even pulling it off to that extent. Like, Janor was very seriously playing within his style of just like if his nugget is the rising tide lifts all ships, he was just playing that to a T, basically.
Right. Yeah. But at the end of all this, Hakan does make a move on Mechatol Rex, but then Hakan ends up giving Barony of Letnev a skilled retreat so that he can leave, because Hakan didn't want to have to fight the actual fleet that was there. It was like a dreadnought and a destroyer and a carrier or something. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to take any losses if you don't have to, and he's Hakan, so he found a fishy way to get out of it by just handing over his own fleet, his own skilled retreat to make Barony leave.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, he had to buy a flank speed from Necro. He did not have Dreadnought 2 yet, and I remember that is important because Barony had 2 direct hits in his hand, but during that first round of combat, he didn't land any hits. So he was offered the skilled retreat and kind of had to take it. If he'd landed, I think, even 1 hit,
he probably would have stayed.
He probably would have stayed and probably would have won.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Hakan Necro relationship, because you bring that up. He bought a flank speed from Necro, but that was a part of a larger deal, which was that Necro wanted to get into Hakan's slice. Necro was wanting to get a certain trait. I think he was trying to get a hazardous planet. I don't remember exactly, or maybe he was. I don't remember exactly which planet he was trying. He was trying to get Centauri, and so Necro wants to come in, but at this point, Unaligned Magi has already shifted his plans of like, I can't be a bully. This table's not going to let me bully him, so I need to do some position swapping. So Necro goes in to take Centauri, or starts saying he wants to go in to take Centauri, and says, "What can we do here?" and he ends up giving Hakan a flank speed so that Hakan can make other moves instead of taking Centauri Grawl. And then by the end of the round, he still also allowed. He still also got to get Grawl.
Yeah. And I want to call that.
Maybe
out.
I'm getting it backwards. I think I got it backwards. I think Necro wanted Grawl. Regardless, they were going to share the system.
It does. The important part is that they negotiated sharing a planet, and I do want to call out Magi for this, calling him out. I mean, it's not a bad thing. What I think is really great about watching the game from Magi's perspective is how much he comes into the game and he's like, I'm playing Necro. I'm in my wheelhouse. And he's like, I'm going to do the thing I want to do. It gets so thoroughly denied by the table, and he immediately starts trying to shift his play style, which is like, it's kind of hard. It's hard for someone to play Twilight Imperium like how they don't like to. I mean, Matt, I think you can totally attest to that. I have seen you so many times be like, I shouldn't be doing this gambit right now, but I am a gambit guy, so I'm doing it.
I'm impossible of playing against my own character.
It was pretty wild within round 2 to see how much the meta had already shifted as far as Magi was going. He was negotiating with Hakan. Him and Jolnar started to feel more like a good thing, even as early as round 2. Instead of it was very contentious round 1, but it really started to change.
Well,
already.
To the point where Necro's plastic advantage, he's actually starting to do his Necro thing, to where Jolnar goes, okay, you're not actively threatening me, but you now have a threatening presence. Time to do our ceasefire swap. Whereas, like, basically the round prior, I don't know if that's something that Necro had been asking for, but it's totally like normal for Necro to have been like, let's do a ceasefire trade. And Jolnar in round 1 didn't sound willing to do anything like that, but in round 2 he jumps all over it, and they trade ceasefires, which is huge for both of them because they're in these two slices that are kind of like designed to fall into each other. And they're going to push into each other's different directions. And both of them, well, in Jolnar's case, there's a now seemingly weak barony on their left that they can just go all over. And Necro is Necro and already partially in Hakan's slice. So, like, they're making this deal at the perfect timing of, like, I need to double down on this maybe weak neighbor I have right now.
Do we want to talk about what Schroeder did that was very, very devious, super devious? Probably.
Yeah, let's do that.
Probably the most devious thing that happened in the whole game. So we were talking about how there's a lot of speaker trades happening. Hakan had politics, Schroeder. So he does a speaker trade to Nalu. Does he get anything out of that? Does anybody remember what the actual trade was? I don't think he just gave it to him for free.
No, he didn't, but I don't remember what it was for.
So he gave it to him for something, and he doesn't get to see the agendas before he does that. He has to make that call first. So he made that deal, but then perfectly, like it could, this, again, we did not rig this, but he draws his agendas, and he draws public execution, and he just puts that on top.
Right.
So that
in theory, public execution should never see the light of day, because if you're the speaker and you drew politics, you wouldn't. The public execution is the agenda that makes you lose speaker and makes you lose all of your action cards. So it's like, it's so dumb for anyone to ever put it on top, unless you just sold the speaker token to your right, and now you can get that speaker token right back in the agenda phase. Right. So this was Schroeder's plan. He put public execution right on top, knowing that the players would probably decide to do a real dirty one to Nalu.
Right.
But boy, it was a long agenda, because that is not the end result.
No.
I don't know, Root, can you walk me through, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Quickly, but what is, like, the ebbs and flows of this agenda that happened?
So first, table was kind of like, oh, we should put it on Necrovirus. Necrovirus seems like a threat right now. And then they were like, well, Jolnar seems kind of like a threat right now, and we think he has good action cards, which, by the way, they were right. He had amazing action cards. So then they were like, okay, you know what? We're kind of leaning towards Jolnar right now. And then Hakan spoke up and said, hey, I got an action card. And showed it to Jolnar and said, I'll sell this to you. And that card is the perfect counter to public execution. Confusing legal text allows you to choose another player as the target of an agenda that elects a player. So he sells it immediately, before any votes are cast, to the Jolnar. And then...
I almost forgot about that. You saying this now is just like, this is like the most poetic thing that's ever happened.
And then disaster struck.
Schroeder sells away his confusing legal text to Jolnar. Continue, sorry.
Yep, disaster struck, and I think the table kind of realized, well, there's only one action card that would be sold right now, and that's confusing legal text, so suddenly Jolnar doesn't really seem like the right choice.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then Nine of Spades was like, hey, Schroeder, I can't believe you tried to do me dirty like this. And then everyone elected him to be publicly executed, and he lost all his action cards.
And he had the card to block it. He had the only way out.
He dealed his way into a corner, basically. He was like, "Oh, I want to do a speaker token deal. Oh, I'll do public execution. I want to do a deal for confusing legal text." And then at the end, it's like, "Oh no."
And I think that there were maybe 2 or 3 mistakes that got made by players in this game, and this was probably the biggest one. If you're sitting on confusing legal text and this agenda comes up, and you're the Hakan specifically, you can sell the card.
Right.
Wait until someone has been elected, and then take everything from them to sell it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Take every action card they have, or whatever.
Extract a heavy price.
And even then, you shouldn't, because they'll just use it on you if they want. Like, there's just you just shouldn't give up this card. Right. Let's start digging in to round 3. So we see a support for the throne swap between the L1 Z1X and Hakan, and this is all over a planet. Hakan's on Mechatol, and Hakan's now starting to maybe threaten some L1 space. I believe that's right. Mm-hmm. And then also L1 negotiates. This was a very, very long turn for Mage, our L1 player. It was his turn, and I think it was like a 45-minute long turn, with multiple secret conversations and lots of talking and lots of thinking. Right. And this was kind of like that, wow, Mage... And the issue for it was Mage didn't have a way to score any points this round. He just straight up and down, there was no way he was going to get a point without sacrificing everything. So what Mage was trying to do was the Mage thing. I have to score some sort of point this round. I have to get something. So he negotiates this deal with Hakan, and then he also offers up the Arnor lore system to the Nalu Collective for another support for the throne. Yep. So in essentially one turn, he got 2 support for the thrones right off the bat in round 3.
It was pretty
neat.
Which
was amazing, yeah. We also see Hakan move into Nalu's space as Nalu's moving into L1. So kind of everybody's starting to move counterclockwise into each other's equidistance and spaces. But the problem here was Hakan pushed maybe a little bit too far in, because Nalu was able to do a retaliatory attack. And I don't remember like the exact results of the actual fight, but I do know the more important thing was we saw a successful salvage get used. The action card that lets you steal a player's commodities. Nalu managed to get 4 trade goods off of Hakan's commodity pile, which is a rare feat. Yeah.
Especially, God, for some, like, after everything that had just happened to Schroeder, the fact that he lost some commodities on top of everything, and from Nalu nonetheless, like, 9 really...
You really raked him over the coals for that.
Right. Yeah. It's not over for Schroeder's round either, because
not at all.
Hakan decides he's going to bail on Mechatol because he wants to go get some planets from Necro that were going to help him score some objectives. But the only way to get there is through the gravity rift, and Schroeder takes the chance, and one of his dreadnoughts, I think it was a dreadnought, dreadnought survives, but he loses his carrier, which means he loses the lion's share of his ground forces, and isn't able to, I think, get the planet he needed at all. I think he just then had a fleet sitting above Necro's defended planets.
No, he did.
And
he
then
did
at the same,
I believe he did take a planet there.
Yeah, a planet. Either way, he lost the carrier, he lost some positional stuff, and then Barony retook Mechatol Rex. So it's almost as if Hakan never was at Mechatol Rex anyways. I think they got their Imperial point off of it. So they got 1 point off of Mechatol before leaving, but then that was the end of Hakan on Mechatol Rex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, an important thing to note about round 3 is that there was another deal that got made that I would have bet very good money on never happening. Yeah. And that is that 9 of Spades, playing the Nalu, sold Gift of Prescience to the L1 Z1X.
And you would bet good money on that, because at the beginning of the game, someone tried to buy it, and 9 of Spades essentially said, not on my life will you ever get Gift of the Prescience. But He made some interesting deals, Root. Can you? Okay. You were there for the secret conversation. I'd love to hear your perspective on what happened and how did Nalu give up Gift of the Prescience.
So L1Z1X had a very specific idea for what he wanted to do with Gift of Prescience, and he felt like he was kind of getting boxed in and had to go in one direction and do one very specific thing in order to have any kind of chance. So he took Nine into a private conversation to ask for Gift of Prescience, and Nine was like, whoa, dude, no, what are you talking about? Let's just go back right now because this is off the table completely. But with a little bit more pressure, Nine of Spades was like, okay, I trust that you are going to do what you say and use this card right away, so not hold on to it until the end of the game. But I'm still not sure, so I need you to do something for me to convince me of the true nature of your heart. And he asked Mage to swear on his wife that he would use this card. And Mage literally brought his wife to his desk, put her on his mic, and swore on her that he would use this card right away.
Swore on her life and their marriage that he would use Gift of the Prescience the next round.
That
gave Nalu the assurance he needed. And going into that next round, he did hold true to that word. And the whole play he had been talking about was he wanted to invade the Barony Aletnev's home system.
Yeah, and we can talk about that, but there's another interesting thing that happens, an important thing before that, between the two rounds. This was when Shard of the Throne came out of the agenda deck.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Yep, it was
early Shard.
God, the agenda phases were just so
they were perfect. We scripted that. I mean, they came out randomly very well.
Right.
Yeah. We couldn't have scripted it better.
Yeah.
Who ended up with Shard originally?
The initial
Shard?
It was the Necrovirus.
Was it Vaughn?
It was the Necrovirus.
Oh, it was the Necrovirus.
Yep. Wow. Everyone voted for an aligned match. I had to take a whole.
But like I've said too, Shard of the Throne's an interesting one because it's hard to. I think there was a point where a couple players were like, "Who wants this? Who can I who can I?" But like,
especially in the mid game,
you never want to buy Shard because the thing is that point is not guaranteed for you.
It's not.
If
yours.
it's Crown of Amphidia, you have to lose a planet in your home system. You could very easily keep that all game. But the Shard of the Throne, losing one combat to lose the point. That might as well just like somebody should just get elected and move on with your day. I think about Shard of the Throne as like that should be a fast vote because whatever, it's going to change in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that coming out at all, but as early as it had a pretty big impact on the game overall.
For sure. So part of L1's plan to take Barony's home system was kind of a mistake, unfortunately for them, which was that 6 planets in non-home systems was an objective that was out, but the non-home systems includes other players' home systems, and L1 kind of, in a daze, forgot this fact, and so the 2 planets that they took from the Barony Aletnev were not planets that were valid things to get that objective off of, and to give a little bit of an excuse for L1. This was our only player who was not playing in an American or a North American time zone. L1 started this game at like 5:30 a.m. their time. They had to wake up extra earlier, and I think they ended up like
barely
not
sleeping.
Getting any sleep the night before. They got like 3.5 hours of sleep and then got on to play this game. So this was one of the first mistakes we saw out of L1 that was like, this you're up against your own body trying to keep you from winning this game. Your brain is probably working actively against you right now.
Yep.
I also want to be nice about it and say that it doesn't really make sense that like other players' home system planets don't count towards this point. Like it doesn't. It's
kind of silly.
It's just like a grammar thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because it feels like the intention is that you can't count your home system.
Yeah, exactly.
But like.
You still had to do work to take someone else's home system. It's not like you took them for free.
If anything, it's worth more the fact that you took someone else's home planets. Like, that should be a big deal.
Well, technically it is. It is technically worth 2 points if the correct Stage 2 objective comes out.
Right,
sure, if the correct
Stage
2 comes out.
That's true. Yeah, how many of those do you see ever?
Right. But upon realizing this mistake, L1 realizes he doesn't... This is sort of... Hunter, you were going to kind of make this point about Mage, which is that Mage likes to push really far. And that our fear for Mage going into this was that they would push too far and that would ruin their chances. And I think our argument here is Mage decided to back off of Barony's home planet, and kind of it ended up putting him in a weird position himself. And if anything, because Barony was so weak when L1 invaded, I think we kind of maybe all agree that he should have pushed further. He should have just been like, nope, I'm keeping this, and this is now my double slice, and hopefully I can turn it into points in a round from now. But for now, I need to double down on this advantage.
It's kind of a nuanced thing, because I feel like taking the home system, like even... I think it was a mistake at that point. I think if I had been Mage, I probably would have been eyeing that home system, because Avant was just playing it really loose as far as plastic goes.
Yep.
But I don't know that was the time to do it, really.
Right.
If you were going to do it. Or at least it didn't seem like he was prepared to do it. It just seemed like, if I get Gift of the Prescience, I can make it happen. It's like, well, all right. I think... After doing it, after making the initial mistake of taking the home system, giving it back felt like a mistake as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think after making the initial mistake of taking the home, I kind of felt like it made more sense to just keep it. Like, you already messed up.
Right.
You're already not scoring the point. You may as well just crush another player.
Yeah. And if it was...
It would have been Vaunt's whole game.
And if it was anyone other than L1Z1X, he A, probably should have made the move in the first place, and B, absolutely giving it back and backing off would be the right choice. But you have a free setup there, and was able to rebuild his fleet. Like,
exactly.
He wasn't in danger.
Space Icon had a
Yeah,
exactly. Now the difference there, though, is Barony was saying they were going to send every single thing back to their home system. They have to. Barony has to get their home system back, or else they're completely out of this game.
Right, but I did
and the fleet that was going to invade L1 was at the very least comparable. I think.
No, it wasn't. No, dude, I did the battle calculator for it. I did the calculator for it. It was like at 80% his favor. Yeah. I typed it into the chat, too,
but I think at the same time, I think L1 didn't want to be left with even just one ship. Maybe he can win the fight, but how many ships does he get left with? I don't know.
The other thing to factor in here is that L1 had Barony's ceasefire.
Right, he had all the that's a good point. He had all the leverage he needed to just hold it and never.
So Barony was like, "Well, I'll take your other systems," but he only really could have taken maybe Theba.
Yeah,
and you can
he wouldn't have done much damage.
Yeah, I think Barony was L1 was in a fine position to just stay the course.
I think from his perspective, it was a course that didn't actively look like it was worth any victory points, and that's what he was most afraid of. Is this actually any victory points, or is this just a crazy thing I'm doing? But regardless, Barony, to take back his home system, had to abandon Mechatol Rex again, and so Barony's taken Mechatol, Hakan has taken Mechatol, Barony has taken Mechatol back, and now Nalu moves in to Mechatol because he sees that Necro is vying for it, and Necro has Imperial this round. So Nine of Spades as Nalu is just like, I cannot allow Necro to get on Mechatol.
Yep.
And this ended up being a running theme for the next few rounds. Nalu was constantly terrified that Necro was going to jump on Mechatol, and they just really did not want that to happen. In this case, I think it was valid. In some of the other times that he was very afraid of Necro taking Mechatol, I was kind of like, why are we still worried about this? Why are we harping on
I think it was
issue?
a little bit less about Nine being afraid of it at that point, and more him trying to put people's attention elsewhere and make someone else the villain. Another factor in him sort of being allowed to take Mechatol Rex without much resistance from the rest of the table was that Necrovirus had Neuroglaive at this point, and could basically at any time also have E-Res Siphons if he so chose.
It was going to be a huge problem if Necro sat on Mechatol and people wanted to try to remove him.
People were very excited about the potential of E-Glaive. Is what they were calling
E-Glaive, right?
And I will say this: we didn't really get it, but
we never.
And honestly,
got
I think Neuroglaive itself is kind of weird for Necro, because it's like they want to fight. They're not
right. Well, and that's Magi's argument too. He says he doesn't like getting Neuroglaive as Necrovirus, but because of his kind of early game position, he stretched himself pretty thin early, or not thin, but he got into Hakon's slice, and he was kind of starting to beeline towards Nalu. He was kind of like, I need to get Neuroglaive because I just need to protect some of my stuff back in my slice. He doesn't love getting Neuroglaive as Necro. At the same time too, he was also making some more deals with Hakan just so that he could keep Hakan at some peace. And it should be said during all of this is round 4 we're talking about. the spice is running very rich in this game. I mean, everyone is making lots of deals. People are getting very, very rich. Jolnar has E-res siphons, and he keeps doing this thing where he tells people, if you activate my home system, I will give you 3 of the trade goods. He makes 4, so he's saying, I just want to keep 1, and you'll make your command counter back in a little bit more of a, like, better
usable
way to
currency.
spend it, which Necro, in a more usable currency, and Necro is all about this, because Necro is like, I have expendable command counters. I absolutely would love to just make some more money. Yeah. So Magi was jumping all over it, but so were a couple other players. So people were
Baron
just like,
and Hakan both
rich.
did a fair amount.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the E-res deal, just the E-res deal for a minute? Where do you guys? Because I was obsessed with it. I was like, this should be Jolnar standard play forever. Yeah. And I just wonder, do you guys feel that hot on it? Because I just thought, because it's costing your opponent a command counter, and you're only getting 1 trade good off of it, but like it's costing your opponent something, and they're really just turning their command counter into a trade good, or to trade goods, if you think about it the way that Magi does.
I think he was in a unique position for it to be effective. I don't think most people have command counters that they can use on that. I think most rounds I'm in the factions that I play, I'm using every command counter I've got. I don't have extras to go get 3 trade goods. But Barony Aletnev, in theory, starts with 2 extra command counters per round.
And had Aaron Emir in their slice.
And had Aaron Emir, so he was very rich with command counters. Necrovirus is great with command counters. Your other option could be something like Soul. Those 3 factions have these command counter advantages that, yes, they can do it. I don't think you can do it with anyone. I don't think enough people will take you up on the offer.
Sure.
Fair, but you just mentioned a lot of very popular factions.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It has
those factions are probably in your Jolnar.
It has the added benefit of potentially protecting slice or systems from your neighbors. If you say, I'll give you 3 of these trade goods, just put your token in this maybe slightly vulnerable spot. I want to make sure you don't attack.
Right.
And then suddenly it's sort of like a mini diplomacy.
Yeah, we loved that point of the fact that, like, Jolnar was getting Necro to activate his home system without moving in, and it was like, if ever I have a weak home system, like, he's not going to move in on it because he's just going to make money off of it and then not be able to do anything about it. All of that being said,
you convince them to do the E-res deal early in the round, and then you can move out your ships. And it's great.
So people are rich, and because we wrote a very, very good script for this game, in the next agenda phase, economic equality came out right after Spend 16 Influence came out as the first stage 2 public objective. So we get a huge spendy objective. Everyone's got huge stockpiles. Boom. Economic equality. Did I say initiative? I don't know. Economic equality comes out, and they actually do vote for it against, right? Everybody ends up with no trade goods.
So for anyone who doesn't know the text of that card, at the end of it, everyone either ends up with 5 trade goods or 0 trade goods. So if you've been stockpiling,
no way out of it.
You get burned hard.
It's the worst agenda because there's no way out unless you have a veto or you're extra. Like, there's literally no option to just, like, maybe be okay. You're gonna lose your stockpile one way or the other. But at the end of the day, too, it was a huge agenda, and people were putting lots of riders down, and Barony even scored an Imperial rider off of it. So helped them in their kind of, at this point, slightly dire situation that they were starting to fall into.
Yeah, it was kind of an Imperial, a pity Imperial point.
Yeah.
All right, so round 5, we're starting to see the first stage 2 has come out, right? As soon as the first stage 2 comes out, you got to think of yourself in endgame territory. People are at 5 or 6 points, and people saw very quickly that the 9 of spades, there's a route for 9 of spades to win that round, or at the very least get very close to winning and be in a situation that's very hard for them to stop in the following round. So people are already starting to call out 9 of spades and say, we got to do something about him. And he's got like 3 or 4 players saying they're going to start chopping him up.
That strategy phase lasted between like 20 and 30 minutes. It was a long one.
It was huge. And so in the end of it, the Nalu Collective decided to take diplomacy. Probably the least effective thing for them in terms of actually pursuing any sort of advantage, but it was purely just like, I have to save myself. And the other thing 9 of spades decided to do is he had enough influence to spend 16 influence at the end of the round, but because everyone was seeing him as such a big threat, leadership got played very early, and he was just like, I have to get this target off my back. I'm buying a ton of command counters.
He just dumped
and making them
virtually all of his influence into counters. and it worked. People were like, he can't score these points, so we're not really going to worry about it.
Why stop him when I could then spend this round working on my own thing? Yep. I think it was a good play. I know, Hunter, you sort of had a slight gripe with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it scared me, and I felt like at the time, I mean, I'm not afraid to be wrong on this show. I thought that he needed to take politics.
Right. I thought to gear for a round 6.
Yeah, because from my perspective, I was like 9 basically. At that point, I thought had it in the bag. Mm-hmm. That it was like, and the thing is, I still don't like. I don't know what would have happened if, like, I know people were at the time really hot on painting a target on Nalu's back, and I felt like he needed politics because it felt like the next round was going to be the last round, mm-hmm. and Nalu doesn't have, because of the 0. Doesn't have that same reliance on getting a specific strategy card, that's for sure. Yeah. But also, like, why lose speaker advantage when you don't have to?
Sure.
And he used diplomacy, right, and I think he definitely effectively got the target off of his back, but it felt really risky to me. I was scared as to, like, is he giving up too much in order to get this target off of his back?
I think there was a threat of that.
I felt confident that he had.
Yeah.
Because essentially that round focus almost immediately shifted to Janor.
Yes.
At least on the stream. I could not see everything. So obviously, I felt a little behind as far as like who's going to win and who has a path.
Right.
But Janor immediately started seeming like he had this in the bag, and it, going into this round being like 9's got this, and then he picks diplomacy, and I was like, well, and then he spends all of his influence, and I'm like, well, so he definitely does not have it.
Yes, right. And the reason Janor got put in such a strong position is Magi actually was trying to pull off some slick stuff. He just had to find ways. This is now the new diplomatic Magi we're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. he's just trying to figure out what he can possibly do. And he becomes very honest with Janor and says, listen, I will give you my support for the throne if you build a space dock underneath. You own this planet and I have ships above it, or I think he hadn't moved in yet, but regardless, he was like, I'm going to put ships here and I want you to put a space dock underneath them and I will give you my support for the throne. And I think there was another part of the deal. I think it was just that he wasn't going to invade his stuff. The end point being, and the table was not into this because Janor was already looking okay, but Magi was like, I'm going to get 2 points off of this because I'll blockade his space dock and mm-hmm. I'll do another secret or I'll do another public, whatever it was 2 points, but Jolnar was essentially going to earn 3 points off of this positional deal.
Yeah. And that's another thing that the table spent a lot of time discussing. There was a very, very lengthy, at times a little heated discussion about whether or not Janor should
this king making whatever.
Right.
But what this ended up with is if everything else goes right for Jolnar, all he has to do is become the gatekeeper,
and win,
then he'll win. And the Alpha Wormhole is kind of far away from him, but there's certainly a route to get there. And he's also even though the table, like, I wouldn't say people are afraid of him enough at this point, and he's telling people to activate him, and he's doing this same E-Res Siphons deal. And it's making it to where nobody's like dealing with him. So this whole time we're starting to get worried of like, oh, is this it? Is this, is he going to steal a victory in round 5? Where nobody, it would have been like a 5-point swing or a 4-point swing or something like that. And he also keeps stalling with all of his action cards. He's really waiting this out. Essentially what he needs to do is he's waiting for ships to move out of his way so that he can get to the Alpha Wormhole, I believe was the end result. Like there was just like single ships all over the place. All these players were very good about gumming up works. And at one point, finally, Nalu moves a destroyer out of his path, and Jolnar has an opportunity to go move in on Lodor. Part of this is he needs to get the Shard of the Throne, and the only way to get the Shard of the Throne is to win a ground combat against the Nalu on Lodor, and that is certainly not what the Jolnar is known for. Winning ground combats. So the board sees this, though. They see that the opportunity is open, and suddenly this is when all the deals start getting made, right? Like Hakan starts receiving flank speeds and in the silence of spaces so that he can go jump on on Jolnar. They recognize that it's probably. I don't think they ever nailed down exactly what secret objective he had, but they were like,
no. In fact, they had it wrong.
Yeah, they thought he needed 5 dreadnoughts, and so they were just looking for somewhere to kill a dreadnought, and they almost convinced themselves to target somewhere else. But they finally did target Quan, which was the one system they definitely needed to attack. So Hakan blocked 2 points from Jolnar because they took out the beta wormhole. And what was the other aspect of it? There was a second point. I guess the shard. It was taking the shard of the throne. Right. So 2 points that Janor needed to be able to win that round were removed from them, and it basically took them out of any sort of contention for that round. This also, there was a moment where Barony had a shot to win, but kind of had a misplay. I forget the exact specifics of that. I wonder if you remember, Root, what was going on there.
Yeah, this was something you guys could see. I had no idea what you were talking about. You sent me a message in the middle of it being like, Vaunt has a path, and I like from not being able to see the cards, I had no idea what you were talking about. Basically,
I don't remember exactly, but I know he needed light wave deflectors and to attack like a very specific person, a very specific place,
right?
And then
the end result being
it got sabotaged.
This victory was there was a move that he needed to do, and then he needed to play focus research to be able to get Lightwave Deflector to pull off a second move.
Yeah.
And maybe of course, focus research is an action card, and it got sabotaged because everybody kind of saw through what he was doing. Yeah. He had been stalling just like everybody else had been. There was actually, in round 5, there was this interesting 3-way stall. Schroeder, Jolnar, and Vaunt worked together to stall out leadership from the entire board so that they could pull off this maneuver to stop Nalu and all these other people. But in the end, like, Barony was hanging in there just because it was opening up a chance for them that didn't end up working out. And this was also the round that Necro put what's the agenda called that you either reveal a stage 1 or a stage 2 public objective? Incentive program?
Yep.
I don't remember.
That's correct.
Yeah, it was incentive program.
He put that on top, and that was kind of his only path at this point. Necro is actually starting to run out of options. The stage 2s are just not things he can score. He's scored almost every single stage 1. Maybe by this point, I think this round he scores the last stage 1 he needs to score. He scored all of his secrets.
And he scores all of his secrets.
Yeah. And everybody else has traded away all support for the thrones. So there are no more points open for him besides stage 2s, and he's just trying to figure out what he can do. So he puts incentive program on top, but the board... There's too many other people to worry about. That was actually their first veto. They get rid of incentive program, but then, luckily enough, classified document leaks still comes out, and so now they have to open up a secret objective to become public, they end up voting on Nalu's control of the region.
I want to correct something real quick
Sure.
because I was actually, when I saw incentive program, I was like, congrats, Magi.
Right.
Because they had actually already used veto earlier, and we had just reshuffled the deck.
That's right.
And it had gotten back out there.
You're right.
But if veto had not come out, I really wonder how that game would have panned out for Magi. It would have been really interesting to see. But I honestly thought that agenda was about to save his game.
Yeah. And there was a lot of debate over which secret objective. A lot of writers came out on this one, which is really weird because it
was all about blocking.
Classified documents. It was all about blocking certain objectives. And control the region is one that is like, it's not that hard to do, but it can be hard to do.
It's very easy to stop.
It's easy to stop.
It's easy to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very important. Exactly. Yeah. So going into round 6, Necro takes Imperial. I think almost more as a blocker than anything else. Unaligned Magi strikes me as the kind of guy who, if he thinks he can win in the status phase, he probably would have just taken leadership anyways. But I think he knew there was no path, and he didn't even have an exact path yet, but there was no path for him to win that didn't include Imperial.
Yeah.
So he had to take that. Jolnar took leadership. Barony took tech because their focus research got taken away from them, and their only path to victory is Lightwave Deflector. So 100% guaranteed to be able to do that now. The L1Z1X took politics. This is kind of like, L1's, scoring early is helpful, but also let's just bank on around 7. Nalu takes trade. This is in an effort to get enough trade goods for spending 16 influence outside of their planets. They already had a decent stockpile again, and this was just going to help improve it even more. Yeah. And then Hakan saw no other route besides Warfare because there was just too much action on the board that they were going to have to deal with. Warfare was their pick. So What's interesting to me about this is so many rounds, so many end games of this tournament, we saw diplomacy being the deciding factor in the final round, right? Whoever ends up with diplomacy has enough protection and also is going early enough in speaker order that they end up winning the game. And in this one, we didn't even see anybody take diplomacy here. Nobody's even considering it an option. There's too many other things that have to be done, which is more to say nobody had a safe victory going out this round.
That's Shard of the Throne.
I'll say this. It felt like Jaynor had the safest victory at this point of the game to me. But again, I didn't get to see everything, but I felt like Jaynor had just the easiest path at this point.
He had a somewhat easy path, but also everyone knew exactly what his secret objective was at this
point.
Well,
only one of them.
He doesn't have. There's no mystery. They knew one of them.
He had two.
Oh, that's true. This is important.
He had occupy the seat of the Empire, and fairly early in that last round, took Bagatal Rex with enough ships to do that, and it was sort of disguised as a protecting it from other people sort of move.
Right.
And also he had PDS on it, so it was like no one really wants to attack that. And no one looked at that as an objective. They focused on the objective they 100% knew he had, which was the gatekeeper and the wormhole one. And preventing it from
and he got lucky there too, though, because he didn't have Mechatol Rex at this point. He was probably still needing to become the gatekeeper, but one of the first actions was Nalu deciding that they needed to jump. They were really afraid of Hakan having a path, and they were like, I have to get this Shard of the Throne off of Hakan. And so they abandoned Mechatol Rex and went into the Gravity Rift, and this is all also part of Nalu actually had a decently safe path to victory. And with the 0 token, it's even better, but they have to survive the round, and they have to survive with the shard. So Nalu's whole round suddenly became about, I've been the Nalu this whole game. My gums are all, or my works are all gums. I've got a single fighter in all these different places, but now I need to reconcile all those forces into single armies that are very, very impossible or difficult to beat. I can't let a single fighter sit out there, because then if I get the shard, all someone has to do is come kill that single fighter.
Yep.
So his whole last round is I have to consolidate my forces. And so he jumps on this Gravity Rift, kills Hakan inside the Gravity Rift, and gets the Shard of the Throne. And Necro uses Imperial. There was a world where Necro...
wait. We don't want to talk about Boot the Dude at all?
Feel free to talk about Boot the Dude. I wanted to avoid
Dude
it,
Gate.
but we can boot the
did you want to avoid it? Well, because it's pretty, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know, the importance of this ruling. I think, Matt, you are making it too important in your head.
Sure.
It's not a huge deal, and I think he would have figured out another way to accomplish this. But like Matt was saying, was sort of leading up to, Nalu, it's in Nalu's interest at this point to consolidate their forces, and for there not to be fighters sitting out there where the throne can just be taken easily from it. So Nalu pulls this maneuver that we're probably going to call forever as the boot the dude moment.
Hashtag boot
where
the dude.
Nalu is going into a gravity rift with a carrier, and then there are some fighter twos, and that's always it's going to get weird.
But the carrier's fully loaded.
The carrier's fully loaded. The carrier is fully loaded of infantry. However, whenever the fighters and carrier and everybody meet up in the gravity rift, he decides to boot one of his dudes out of the carrier into the rift. Literally kicks one of his guys off
into a
black
hole.
And then the fighter has to snugly fit inside of that carrier immediately. Right. And the reason it has to do this is because otherwise they'll be violating fleet supply.
Right.
They'll have too many things.
Right. But he would rather have the ships. He would rather have more fighters so that fleet is harder to kill.
Yep.
So one extra fighter, or in this case, two extra fighters, because they're half capacity.
Also, it's just so that he doesn't have to leave the fighter sitting there by itself.
Right.
That's
he has to move it out of a different system and get it into this system.
So this was the only real moment where we had to basically stop the game and go deep into rules lawyer mode.
Yeah, and I hate being there. I hate that world.
And you did, and I understand not wanting to bring it up, but it is in there. If people watch it, they'll be like, "Hey, how come you guys didn't talk about this really crazy moment where everything stopped?"
Yeah, because it was a lot. It was a lot.
It was a lot, and we decided to boot the dude. There's still controversy about whether or not it's okay to boot the dude, but every ruling we have suggests the boot.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with booting the dude.
Yeah,
well, no, I have some confirmation from Dane. It's not finalized confirmation, but he was like, I'm almost positive that's what is correct.
Okay, but I will say this, and this is what I said on the stream. This is one of those things that's in such a gray area that I would not be surprised if the ruling changes.
Yeah.
But guys, we try so hard with this stuff, and all I know is that right now in this game now, that if you're listening to this right now as it's come out, booting the dude was legal right now. If it's not legal a year from now, I won't be super surprised, but it was legal today, so that's what happened, okay?
Right.
So sit down.
Yeah. So there was a world where Necro could have stalled out Imperial, but I think he just kind of was like, I can't let all these things hinge on weird stuff. So he plays Imperial on his first turn. I think his first turn. He plays it early so that he can score that control the region secret objective that is now public.
It was actually kind of funny.
That puts him at...
He was able to do it first round because they tried to attack one of his little mini fleets that was acting as one of those 6, and he had a skilled retreat, and then no one else was able or willing to attack him, so he was able to get that point off Imperial during the round.
Wait. No. Was that not the moment where he pulled the skilled retreat out? Someone sabotaged it, and then he pulled out another skilled retreat?
That's right.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. He had 2 skilled retreats.
He played two skilled retreats in order to lock that in.
So this had a huge implication on the round because what this did was it put Necro at 9 points, and which means all that Necro needs to do is win a combat against the player with the Shard of the Throne, and they win automatically. It will be their 10th point if they get that Shard of the Throne. So everyone knows this, and everyone knows Necro is now this terrifying thing, and we cannot let the Shard fall into an area. It can't go to a player that then has a fleet that is susceptible to a Necro fight, and Nalu is the one who holds it. We're also in a situation where the only way Nalu can win is if they hold the Shard of the Throne at the end of the round. They did not have enough other points. If they lose the Shard, they'll score and be left at 9 points. We also have a situation where before this, the fight Barony is getting Light Wave Deflector for is 2 things. Barony is sitting at 8 points, and Barony needs to get the Shard of the Throne, and in that same combat, ideally, they have win a fight against the victory point leader. So if the victory point leader holds the Shard of the Throne, and they attack that person and win, they get 2 points in one combat and win the game.
So it was really awkward for him because he needed 9 to not have it and Necro to not have it. He needed Jolnar or Hakan, who were sitting at 8, to take it and go to 9.
And the big problem with Necro scoring that control of the region was before that, everyone was at 8. He had 4 targets, but because Necro scored that point mid-round with Imperial, it made it to where he only had one option, or he needed other players to get that Shard of the Throne. So he's just sitting there all round, stalling out and waiting and hoping the Shard of the Throne passes around enough times to where he finds a target that he can jump on and have a successful fight against. Meanwhile, Hakan, Jolnar, and Barony are now stalling. Oh, this is the round where everyone was they were stalling everyone out. Everyone was running out of actions. I mistook that for round 5. So yeah, they I believe it was Jolnar had leadership, and Jolnar was refusing to play leadership, and Hakan, Jolnar, and Barony all had a decent amount of command counters, and Hakan was dealing out action cards so the 2 of them could stall so that nobody else could take any other actions to be able to win any sort of victory. And they're all stalling out, trying to find opportunities to jump on Nalu to get that Shard of the Throne, find a good fight or whatever. So the round goes for a long time. Lots of discussion. At basically every single turn, it's like, who could win right now? How do we stop them? What are the exact things that need to be done? It was like this crazy long negotiation. And at a certain point, Vaunt has been stalling out this whole time. And finally, it comes to a point where it's like, I have 2 command counters left. I cannot wait anymore. I need to initiate the strategy. And so the new version of his strategy is, what's nice is he has fleet logistics. So he still in one turn can win, but now he needs to win a fight against Necro and also win a fight against the player who holds the Shard of the Throne, which is Nalu. So he has to win 2 fights. What's funny here is, as people have pointed out since the game, he made the wrong decision because he went for a fight against Nalu first. Now, the end point of all this is he didn't even win a fight against Nalu, so it doesn't matter. He didn't get the point he needed to win. So even if he then goes and fights Necro, he's still at 9. But the issue is he attacked Nalu first. Necro is at 9 points. If he had won the fight against Nalu, that puts him at 9. He now has to win a fight against Necro to win, and if he doesn't win the fight, the shard passes from himself to Necro, giving Necro the win. Whereas if he does it in the reverse order, if he attacks Necro first, he gets his secret objective, then he fights Nalu and just gets the Shard of the Throne. But he had almost put himself in a situation where he could have handed the win to Unaligned Magi.
Yep.
Wow,
this is the kind of hot potato we were running into in this final round. It was everyone had an opportunity throughout the course of this whole round. It was absolutely wild.
Can I just brag about something? Like, if you're not convinced thus far in this episode that this was a buck wild, really fun game to watch, we had, I mean, I don't know about Mage, so I'm not necessarily I love you, Mage. You're great, and it was so much fun watching you play all these times. But I'm pretty sure 5 of the 6 of these players had a path to win that was obvious and there in the end. Except, very actually, Vaunt's was not obvious because I could not see what was going on. But I trusted you. You were telling me that
we were
Vaunt
freaking
had
out
a path.
in our private chat that like Vaunt was going to get
so
it.
I could see it, so 5 of the 6 players were just right there ready to get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
So then there's one last effort here, and I think at this point they see that Nalu is going to win. Nalu's got it in the status phase.
Yep, despite Nalu's heroic efforts to convince people that he did not have a score of the secret.
Right. Actually, we have to point out the one thing, too. There was a moment where 9 of Spades looked at one of was it Necro's? Whose system was it where he said... You can't if you unactivate that system, I'm screwed. Like that.
It was
this
Schroeder.
Was part of his
it was Schroeder
posturing.
because Schroeder had
thank you.
Had warfare.
So Schroeder has warfare, and 9 of Spades pulls this play where he says everyone's saying you have the victory, you have the victory, you have the victory, and he goes, if you pull your command counter from the beta wormhole, I definitely do not have a victory. And Schroeder's like, wait, how do I stop you if I pull it from the beta wormhole? And 9 of Spades goes, well, if you can't see it, I'm not going to explain it to you.
It was Oscar worthy. It was Oscar worthy.
And the whole point here is it was the other activated system that was the one that was actually the threat. The beta wormhole, if he lifts the command counter from the beta wormhole, 9 of Spades is fine. But Schroeder's other fleet was the more honest threat. And 9 of Spades double bluffed him out of and convinced him to pull the command counter on Quan. And Schroeder's sitting there going, I don't know, I gotta find it. I gotta figure out what he's talking about. But there was nothing there. It was like Poker Pro level bluff.
Wow.
But the last Hail Mary pass here, everyone thinks it's basically over. But Janor says, I have one opportunity here. If he attacks this system and wins the Shard of the Throne, so the situation is people didn't think he would have it because the only viable system for him to attack Nalu and get the Shard of the Throne was a system where Necro had a Dreadnought, and Jolnar has Necro's support for the throne. So he's going to lose a point, gain a point. It's not really going to do him anything. But then an opportunity came up, and I forget what was the other point that he was going to be able to score. It wasn't a secret objective. What was the other available point that he was going to get out of this fight to win? Do you remember, Root?
I have no memory of it. At this point, the stream was really messing up, so I missed a lot of this really good stuff.
I don't recall exactly, but he definitely was able to risk losing the support for the throne and still win. I think it might have been more about the fact that he just needed Nalu not to win.
That's what it was. You're right. Thank you. That's exactly what it was. It was Nalu is 0 in scoring order, and he was 1 in scoring order, and he has the points. He has his path to victory. The problem is he doesn't have the initiative order advantage. Yeah. So if he can get the support, or if he can get the Shard of the Throne off of Nalu, it means Nalu's going to top out at 9, and he will balance out his points. He doesn't need 1 extra point. Yeah. He just needs to keep what he's got, so he can lose the support for the throne, get the shard, and then win that way.
It was he did have Necro's support, but it was Barony's that he lost because Barony was hovering over the system with a Dreadnought where he tried to make his play, and Jolnar had to attack that Dreadnought in order to get to the Grand Force.
Gotcha. Well, regardless, the end result here was yet again Jolnar had to fight a 1v1 ground combat against the Nalu Collective, and this time it was for the win. Whoever wins this ground combat wins the game. And Jolnar's not known for ground combats. So they roll. I think this ground combat went a couple of rounds before anyone scored a hit. It was kind of
dramatic.
One of those nail biters. Yeah. But in the end, Nalu scored a hit at the same time that Jolnar scored a hit. I believe they both scored hits, right? Like that. I believe so, yeah. That might have been a different fight, but I remember it being like everyone just screaming because the order in which the dice rolled, it was like, oh my gosh, he might have it. But then Nalu also scored a hit, and that means that Jolnar does not win the fight, which means that Jolnar does not get the Shard of the Throne, which means he does not win. And the first thing that happens in the status phase is with 0 initiative, Nalu wins the Space Cats Peace Turtles Patreon Tournament Championship.
9 of spades, ladies and gentlemen.
It was
9 of spades is the winner.
The same player who won the only game that we saw a Yin victory, the only game that we saw a Nalu victory with this one. This was the only Nalu win of the whole tournament, and the only game where we saw Muat win, which, as we said in the knockout wrap-up, it was like the craziest win I've ever seen, of crawling from behind as Muat to win. So a incredibly well-deserved championship for the 9 of spades.
Yeah, for sure.
Played a great tournament.
9 is a very he's an unconventional player. He every game we've seen him play has been really wild to watch. I had already said, like, his prelims game was one of my favorite, if not my favorite prelims win. And yeah, he was the most experimental of all the players.
I think so.
I would say. Yeah. Like, and also the hardest one to pin down as far as like his faction preferences.
Right.
I had no idea if he was going to play well with Nalu. In fact, honestly, when he got Nalu, I was like, well, he's not going to win. It's not going to be 9.
Because we've seen Nalu underperform. I would say it was even less a 9 of spades thing and more just like, it seems like Nalu's not doing well. It seems like Nalu's not good. So this seems like a bad play to go down, but didn't matter for 9 of spades.
And I disagreed with, that stuff he did, his strategy card picks earlier.
Yeah.
I was really, there are parts of this where, even though like I think 9 of spades is amazing to watch, there were parts where I was like, I don't know about this guy. I don't know about what he's doing. And the fact that he still won in spite of all that, it was so satisfying.
Yes, it was.
You know what I mean? Like, it's satisfying to watch someone play and be confused by their play, and then they still win.
Right.
So much fun.
Definitely.
Much fun. One of the best days of my life.
Right. It was a 13.5-hour long stream. It was a 13-hour long game.
Yeah, well, that part wasn't contributing to it being the best day of my life, but it was so much fun, so much fun.
Yeah, it was madness. But I think this is where we got to wrap it up. This has been a long one. So if you liked this episode, if you liked this tournament, if you like Twilight Imperium, will you please give us a rating on iTunes? It helps increase our visibility. It helps increase Twilight Imperium's notoriety amongst the community. It helps find us all more people to play this game with. And the more people that play this game, the more chances we can do a tournament like this again in the future. So there's your little teaser there. You can also follow us on Twitter at SpaceCatsPod. We do game updates, announcements for streams, things like that. Facebook, Space Cats Peace Turtles. You can send us questions on there, as well as we have all sorts of announcements on there. The Reddit/r/Twilight Imperium. The Twilight Imperium subreddit is where we post all of our episode posts. There's also a map wiki. If you people are always having trouble finding this, I'm going to actually spell this out. Reddit.com/r/Twilight Imperium/wiki/maps. If you want to find all kinds of a huge resource of maps, but also I've posted every single one of the Space Cats Peace Turtles Patreon tournament maps in this wiki with links to stats where you can input the end results of your game so that we can collect stats on all these maps forever and see how well different factions do on the different types of maps. All of that is found on the Twilight Imperium subreddit. You can also join our Patreon and contribute to this show. We've got a Galactic Council episode coming up here in a couple weeks. So if you want to get in on the vote for the upcoming Galactic Council episode, all you have to do is be a $5 contributing member. It's cheap and easy to get in on these votes. We try to do them once per month. The tournament's been funky for some of the Patreon benefits, but now with the tournament over, we can really start digging back into all these things. We've also got a Discord for lots of fun conversations up there. That's where you collect a lot of your Patreon benefits. You can also, because he's been such an incredibly huge help to us this whole tournament, and Root, you dived into this just on a voluntary basis. We were going to do the tournament, and you said, "I'm getting into streaming. I want to do the videos for the tournament. I want to make sure there's a video of every." So honestly, the only reason we have a video of almost every single game of this whole tournament is due solely to Root, who you can follow on twitch.tv/Root, ROOT 711.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do stream Twilight Imperium. I stream some other things, and hopefully we'll stream some more board games that are a little bit different that are also fun. So check it out.
Yeah. Well, and if you follow us on Twitch too, we have him set up as an automatic host. If Root's online, we're you can go to our channel too to find his channel if you forget that URL ever. Hey, I also want to thank some Patreoners, some Space Kitties. I want to thank Kraken, Billy, TG Welch, Yin for Life, Patience is a Virtue, Dursta, Naderade, and Jim Bob. I especially want to thank a few of all of the Space Kitties, as well as a couple of the Good Yin Brotherhood and some Galactic Counselors that helped us test this finals map. I want to thank everybody who was a part of those 2 games. It was a lot of you who kind of jumped in, some of you last minute, but it was very much needed to double check that this map didn't have any glaring flaws. So thanks for everyone who helped out in those 2 test games, and for keeping your secrecy so the map could stay a secret. And that's it. No play of the week. This whole show was a play of the week.
Yeah.
This whole game was the game of the week.
No play of the
week.
week.
My life. So that's it. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for all the players. Thanks to all 108 contestants. And thanks again to you, Alec, for all the help you've been giving us along the way.
It's been a lot of fun. And quite a learning experience.
Oh, yeah. Can we do a overall tournament wrap-up next week and have Root? Would you come back next week to do that episode too?
Yeah, of course. I do have thoughts about tournaments and leagues.
Of the tournaments in general.
Yeah.
And commentary.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So you got another one in us for us talking about the tournament. We're gonna try and stuff all the rest of our thoughts into next week, and then we're gonna have a beach episode. And by that I mean I'm gonna sleep, and I'm gonna sleep on the show.
Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles, and thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.